going to go ahead and get us started here. So if you don't already know him, this is Ben Rigsby. He works super closely with Petra and a Boundless brand and myself, basically a marketing mentor to me. So I'm super excited to have you on today. Ben received his Bachelor's of Arts from Virginia Intermont College with a specialization in multimedia design and production before eventually directing the creative and operational efforts of an online multimedia at CJ Advertising in Nashville. I don't know if you guys remember Arnie. We've had him on before too. He was at CJ Advertising. Ben then went on to co-found Snapshot Interactive, a digital agency, and later ECO Prez, an interactive presentation platform. At Snapshot, Ben serves as the creative, strategic, and technical lead for design and motion graphics and development and project innovation. So welcome, Ben. It's not a surprise that the marketing world has changed big time lately. For the first time ever, the majority of marketers are now responsible for top of funnel and bottom of funnel activity, having purview over the automated sales pipeline and CRMs while also driving the lifetime value of a customer. So today's Ben is going to dive into unpacking those trends of marketing in today's B2B and B2C worlds and the new areas of expertise that organizations are leaning on from their marketing folks. We also have a special guest on with us, Kristen McLean from the Vivid Ink Company. Kristen and her team transformed the spoken word into lasting and actionable works of art. So your recap will have this really beautiful and unique image of today's webinar as well. One last reminder that today's interactive. So look at the bottom of your screen, you see a chat box, you see a Q&A button. We encourage you to use those at any time. And Ben will make some time at the end for Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to let you do your thing, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Guys, thanks for making time on a Monday afternoon. I get really excited to talk about all things marketing, and this is something that I truly do geek out on in the sense of how much marketing has changed over the last 2 years. And so I'm excited to dive in on all the things. So quick disclaimer as we get this party started, what this is not is 2022 marketing trends, specifically around design, content, thought leadership, anything in that space. If you do a quick Google search, you will find a flood of things that will talk to you about the end of 2021, 2022, design trends, content trends, marketing trends like that. What this is geared a little bit more towards is the fundamental shift that is taking place around the expectation that organizations have out of the marketing function within their companies. It's also around what that means not only for those organizations and the value that it could be provided to those organizations, but also what it means to us as marketers and the gap that might persist and shrinking that gap with certain things here and there. So diving into it, so I'm not just the random dude up here talking to you guys, a little background about who I am. So I've been in the marketing game for about 18 years. Yes, I have a little bit of a Benjamin Button situation going on here, but over those 18 years, I've worked with everything from multi-unit, multinational teams that have got essentially a person for every single task or function that you might think of from a marketing standpoint, all the way down to the MacGyver single person that quote unquote is just doing it all, wearing a million hats. Now, over that time, I've become pretty accustomed to walking in and understanding pretty quickly how savvy the operations and team is from a marketing standpoint, and sometimes extremely savvy to the point where it makes me really have to step up my A game, learn quickly on the job, all the way down to the MacGyver, nitty gritty, get shit done type of individual. And over those two types of teams, I would imagine that we find ourselves as marketers somewhere within that spectrum. And I'm always interested about all the things that marketing is responsible for traditionally and not traditionally. So I got up on the screen just a slew of things that I come across on a day-to-day basis, right? And every single one of these, you're probably like, yep, nodding, yes, that's my job, I do that every day. And there's so much more, right? I mean, everything from media and PR, internal and external communications, a lot of time, culture, internal morale, content, organization, the website, you name it, marketing is responsible for those things. And what I think is interesting is that marketing is not necessarily changing from that perspective. we're still responsible for those things. It's evolving pretty fast at that clip as well. And so over working with the teams, both big and small, there have been some patterns that I have noticed that persist across all of those teams. And they really fall into two main buckets here. One is image-based marketing, and the other is direct response. So marketing is either responsible for amplifying the brand's voice, credentialing it out into the world and internally as well, or they're responsible for accelerating momentum of the brand by converting those visitors, users on the website, events, whatever, into individuals that we can essentially sell to. Now, over the time, I've experienced teams that do it both. I've experienced teams that just do one and slightly the other. But these are the norms that start to persist across all the functions across marketing. And over the 18 years of working with teams, partnering with marketing teams, I have come to expect that these two items become the gold standard for what marketing is supposed to do for an organization. It is supposed to build the brand, represent the brand to the world, communicate that brand, and it's also supposed to drive activity into the brand for fuel and growth. Now, having said that, I will say, and probably the reason that all of us are on this call today, is that we feel that there is a shift. Yes, it is these things, and it is more. And the reality is that we're up against a new set of expectations. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me, and likely you guys as well, that marketing's role is expanding into areas right outside the traditional image-based or direct response patterns that we just kind of flew through. I mean, we're stepping knee deep, quite frankly, into customer experience, sales enablement, data and analytics, and the list just goes on and on from that standpoint. And the outcomes that we're being held to and judged on are becoming a lot clearer, yet also firmer. The days of us being judged on impressions, click-throughs, and dare I say even conversions, those days are starting to change. Now it's the days of what was the revenue, what was the lifetime value. And so our old stats of click-throughs, bounce rate, conversions are now becoming the leading indicators of what the conversation is turning into. Of course, those things are important to us, but at the same time, that's not truly the outcome that the organization is looking for. And second to that point, the landscape in which we operate, the play the game, the rules are just changing. I mean, we are now operating, I'm sure everybody is familiar with this, but operating in a cookieless world, or what will be a cookieless world. Facebook, Google, anybody and everybody's cracking down on those privacy policies. And all that does is really adjust what we do, how we think about a paid acquisition or organic strategy. I'm sure everybody is also familiar with this. This just blows my mind, but email marketing is about to change in a very significant way with the cloaking of open rates. I mean, Apple will take the first step, but so too will Google, and everybody will fall right after that. And so the reality is the tried and true tactics that we have come to use as standard operating procedures in our game are shifting before our feet, which really just starts to put into question, what data do we have access to? How are we using that data? And what can we do to go get more of that data to accelerate the growth of not only our marketing efforts, but the organization at large? Now, it's not all doom and gloom, right? Change is constant, and with change comes tremendous opportunity. So taking a quick step back here, COVID happened. Right? And with COVID, every single B2B, B2C, B2B2C organization that I was working with started asking the questions of how can we start to mitigate expenses while still going on the offense as an organization? Quite frankly, not knowing how long the pandemic would last. Now, I will say that during COVID, we saw a couple of really interesting things. It was an explosion in all things digital, right? For the first time ever, I would say, we had all of our prospects, all of our customers at home in front of a screen. And so digital became hugely important for organizations that were never doing digital before. In fact, they were quite successful just spinning it up for the first time. And so the explosion of digital was a real thing, very, very apparent for us. And also it was, how do we do more with less? How do we spend less money? how do we do the same, if not more work, get even higher results with a streamlined team? And so through COVID, if I were to boil it down to the marketing teams that I was partnering with, the organizations that I was working for and with, it was simply, how do we automate everything? And what we can't automate, what can we optimize? And this is when I started to see, and more importantly, feel this first shift. The convergence of marketing, sales, and operations started to take place. Never before have these three teams worked more hand in hand, more coordinated efforts for the organization, and it was all around efficiency. This concept of doing more with less, running a tighter ship, becoming more intelligent and purposeful about the moves that we make and the resources we need to use to employ those moves to accelerate the growth of the organization during a crazy time that was COVID. And it was through these conversations around automation and optimization, digital booming, becoming more efficient with the moves that we're making with clients, both big and startup clients, friends, other marketers, that is when I started to realize that the quote unquote three-legged stool of marketing, sales, and operations was about to diverge into a single column or clump, if you will. And I needed to grow fast. I mean, this was happening before my eyes. It's happening before your eyes, right? And it's like, how in the world can marketing start to affect sales differently than it's affecting it now? And even more so, how in the world can marketing affect operations? And the more I thought about it, the more enlightening it started to become. When we think about sales and operations and marketing, marketing is the one that is tasked with creating and building the brand and driving leads into the organization. Now, we should always be working with the sales team to understand activity, junk leads, what's working, what's not working. But today it is a must that we start working with the sales team to understand those opportunities so that we can drive them faster for that or for that team specifically. And with the explosion in sales enablement really coming to fruition, how we can start to affect change with them to help them close those deals faster. And if you think about it, marketing also has a direct tie into operations with customer experience, NPS scores, CSAT scores, and truly just keeping the customer apprised of the process throughout their life cycle with us. And so while I have always been a firm believer that CEOs and leadership teams really don't care about impressions and click-throughs and bounce rate, I mean, every once in a while I'll find myself in a room and somebody will want to nerd out with me on that, and that's fantastic. But those are exceptions to the rule. They have always been concerned about what is top of funnel or top line revenue coming in the door? How do we start to mitigate our expenses? And how do we keep our customers longer and upsell and cross-sell to them? And for the first time that I can think of, those CEOs, those leadership teams are now turning their attention to marketing and asking those questions. And so, my friends, where we find ourselves today is what is called the Great Convergence. It is taking the silos of marketing, sales, and operations, and it is blurring them together for the benefit and the growth of the organization as a whole. And so when we think about how marketing might be able to affect sales and operations and lifetime value, let's start with marketing first. When we think about marketing, this is stuff that should not, or probably is not new to anybody on this call, but it is really starting with understanding the audience. It is using data analytics up to our ability to understand the different avatars, personas, customers that we might have. And it is using that to segment those personas or customers or avatars into very specific buckets that it feels like to them that we're talking to them individually. You know, most organizations have multiple customer personas. They also have influencers. It's our job to understand that and use that to our advantage when we're trying to engage them in conversations or marketing materials. Marketing's role is also driving and nurturing leads, right? It is through marketing automation is one component to that, but so too is digital marketing as well as content marketing. And if you think about it, ROI and analytics are extremely important to the foundation of what we do. It is objectively being able to report on, we spent this dollar, what did we get for that dollar? So that come around next year, we can say we're putting our money in the best buckets to get the most impact that we need. Now that's from a marketing standpoint. So then we start to think about, all right, in this shift, how does marketing turn its attention to sales and help affect and be responsible for the results and the performance of that team as well? It starts, in my opinion, with the lead qualification, right? It's like marketing's job is to bring in some leads, some prospects, engage them through our content. This can be through social media, search, you name it. The job is to get the leads in the door. We have to then qualify those leads. And this qualification process can be extremely impactful to the sales team simply because we're helping them put their energy and focus on the ones that matter the most. Now, lead scoring and grading is not a new concept. However, for a lot of individuals, they can get overwhelmed by it. But the simplicity of it is this: we come up with a scorecard and we say, based off every single email you looked at, link you clicked on, blog you read, you get a point or a series of points for that. And based off our leads process, we know that once somebody hits a series of points or a certain score, they are probably going to be more apt to buy our services or engage in conversations for a sales team that is worth their time. So lead scoring and grading is a huge component in how marketing can start to affect sales. The same is true from an assignment rule standpoint. So when we think about assignment rules, it is everything from, we got this enterprise customer on the hook, they want to talk to somebody, we should probably not let them talk to Johnny that just graduated college, right? It is us understanding not only the behavioral intent and buyer intent of that prospect, but also the scope and size so that we can pair them up with the most sensible individual on the sales team. Also, sales enablement, right? This is blown up in so many ways, everything from case studies, presentation decks, ROI tools, anything and everything that we can use at our disposal for our sales team to help their job and to speed up that close rate is hugely beneficial. Now, I would say these other two are newer to the game. One is pipeline automation and the other is contract automation. So if you think about a sales organization, there is likely going to be stages in the sales process. Well, because of our lead qualification and our sales enablement, we can start to automate those stages for our sales team instead of them manually doing it and waiting on this person to move one lead from one stage to the next. We can take care of that behind the scenes for them. The same is true from a contract automation standpoint. As soon as a deal is closed won, there are probably 100 things that fire off in your organization that would be nice to just have automated. And that's everything from an email back or a series of emails back to the customer that just closed one with us about what to expect, the process, engaging them, thanking them for the opportunity. And simultaneously, there's a whole bunch of things internally that we need to go do. Alert accounting, alert AR, alert project management, production, delivery, what have you. But there's a lot of things that we can do there as well. When we think about how marketing can start to affect operations, we're kind of touching on it right now, which is once a deal has been done, what can we do to speed up the process, make it more seamless, create more touch points for the individual or the customer, so to speak, and then start to work with them to engage them across that life cycle of that process. And so it is internal workflows and notifications. It is process automation, but it's also reporting and analytics, understanding what's working, what's not. And that's everything from NPS scores, CSAT scores. So a job is done. We now want to fire off a whole bunch of things to that customer to understand how did we do? And then setting up some sort of process that allows us to capture that information, revisit that information so that we can address any kind of challenges or wins top of funnel in our messaging. And so when we do these things, when sales, marketing, and operations are working together, we see some really interesting things. And this is a higher retention rate, and it's a faster close of deals. And so while these are stats on the screen, 36% higher retention rate when these three things are working together within the organization, and a 67% faster close of that deal, Like those are stats, right? But over the last 2 years of me being knee deep into this with businesses, small to mid-sized businesses that I'm working with, like it's insane, the synergy that can happen from marketing, sales, and operations. And so I think when we look at each one of these, there are some really nice chapter points that transition us pretty seamlessly from one to the next. If you think about marketing, it's crazy how much we have to get in the minds of our customers or our potential customers. And the best way to use that is data and analytics. And the best data and analytics that we have is actually our own freaking data. It is us from procurement, demographics, what customers are awesome, what customers suck. We surely want to double down on the customers that are awesome. We do not want to go after and market to the customers that are not so great. So using our data to its best ability to further new business is a huge thing for us. And all of that data is operational data. When we think about sales, they're using our ability to qualify leads and engage leads over time, either by a single individual raising their hand saying, hey, I'm ready to buy, I want to talk to you. Or, hey, I'm going to drip you some content over a series of days, weeks, months, whatever it is. But they're using that to put their focus where the focus needs to be instead of flooding their world with a whole bunch of junk that doesn't matter. And all the organizations that I work with, that is usually one of the first friction points that I encounter is marketing and sales. Sales not paying attention to the leads that marketing is driving, marketing being upset that sales is not paying attention to the leads that marketing is driving. And it's this battle. Lead scoring, grading, and automation is the fix to that so that we are slowing that drip and allowing our sales team to focus only on qualified leads. And then from a sales standpoint, that seamless handoff of notifications and workflow and process into accounting, delivery, project management, that is where we start to get a well-oiled machine to increase net new customers, the speed in which we go acquire net new customers, and ultimately engaging those customers throughout the life cycle of a process, which will increase our lifetime value. Now, in this great convergence of taking the silos of marketing, sales, and operations and combining it into the column or clump of the single unit, there are a couple of things that get highlighted extremely quickly in this new world. And that is the importance of a CRM and the importance of marketing automation. When we think about CRMs house all that operational data that us as marketers need to go use. It is the intelligence, it is the connectivity, not only internally, but to customers, understanding what's working, understanding what's not working. And so it's our job as marketers to unpack that data, to use that data to the best of our ability so that we can be more effective at the top. Then we've got marketing automation. This is one of these things that some people are dabbling in from a marketing standpoint. I would beg to say it is now a table stake. Just the same as using data was once a fringe item, it is now a table stake. And so using marketing automation, not only for external purposes, but also for internal purposes, creating a very personalized experience for the individual that we're talking to or the teams that we're helping to accelerate. And so these two things, albeit CRM has always been in our world, right? But as marketers, we might not be as in tune with the CRM as the sales team is or the operations team is. But now it is in the front seat. Same is true with marketing automation. And so when we think about the CRM, the intelligence and the connectivity of the data that we have access to, it is becoming ever more important. You hear all this stuff about cookieless and first-party data and the importance of first-party data. Well, first-party data is just our data. It's stuff that we've collected on customers for months, weeks, years, decades even. It is procurement, it is demographics, it is upsells, it is cross-sells, it is customer notifications, it's activity with our customers so that we can understand what's working, what's not. It's not to say that we don't want to go use third-party data sources, but it's using the intelligence of our data, uploading that into third-party data sources so that they can go build lookalike, similar audience off of more credible information than just off their targeting algorithms. And so from a CRM perspective, this becomes incredibly important for us to focus in on the targeting, right? It's understanding our audience even better through the captured data that we have access to. It allows us to segment that audience. A lot of people think of segmentation as in email lists. Well, that's actually, I mean, it can be true, but the true segmentation should be happening in the CRM, because that is where we can understand different buckets of clientele that we want to go after versus ones that maybe aren't as profitable or fruitful for the organization. The same is true with personalized content. Personalized content goes well beyond a first name and an email, right? It is using all of that data in the CRM. It's understanding what the interests are, what the behavioral intent is, and playing that back to the individual through an email or through some sort of programmatic advertising. But it's playing that back to the individual so it feels as though to them we know exactly who they are, where they are in the process, and how to get them to the next step. It is also immensely important for tracking and handoffs, right? It's like, I always used to think of SEO being this black box of just mysteriousness, right? And a lot of individuals think of marketing as mysteriousness. But if we can hook up the tracking into our CRM, we can objectively understand where that lead came from, that it came from that 300 by 200 ad on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, or no, it didn't. Social media doesn't work for us. It really helps us objectify the conversations and take the emotion, take the gut out of it. And so a CRM becomes really important for us of owning our data, doubling down on our data. And now that we've got our data cleaned and we know how to use it, how do we go accelerate it through the use of third-party data sources, through the use of Facebook, Google, Instagram, all those things. And so CRMs are becoming first and foremost in a marketer's world to have the intelligence to do what it is we need to go do for the organizations. Second to that is marketing automation. A lot of times I will run into customers that are using things like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and there's a little bit of automation that comes along with that. But the power of marketing automation is so immense when we start to think through not only external, but internal purposes as well. A lot of people are just thinking about marketing automation as a drip campaign or an autoresponder for an email. Those are great. We should totally be doing those, but there is so much more that we can be doing. If we have got marketing automation employed in our organization, we can increase the revenue and average deal size by focusing in on upsell opportunities, cross-sell matrices. There's all kinds of things. And it sounds crazy hard, but it's actually really not, especially when it's paired with a CRM. A lot of times people will think of marketing automation as, yeah, that's just my email tool. The reality is it is multi-channel, or the fancy way to say that, omni-channel. I mean, we can launch things from marketing automation that tie directly into SMS or text messaging, tie directly into display or social advertising, phone calls, even traditional print. Even it's not to say that the marketing automation tool is going to fire it off to the print house, it's going to drop ship it. It's not that crazy yet, but there's steps in this process that then we can alert the mail guy or the mail girl to then fire off that traditional print piece. And then we wait 7 days and then the process picks up from there. So there's really creative ways on how we can leverage this to our ability. Reducing the lead conversion. This is insane through lead scoring automation, through just straight up checking in on the customer. If a deal has been hanging there for 10 days and nobody's paid attention to it because we're so busy paying attention to everything else, we can have little automation rules that are following up with individuals that are moving them through the process while we are focused more on the business and the next thing that we need to be paying attention to. And this is where it gets super sick. This is cross-department automation. A lot of people don't really pay attention to this, but this is where the power is for the organization. When we talk about speeding up our efficiency, doing more with less, this is it. When delivery happens, when delivery needs to get engaged, once a deal has happened or a customer has come on board, like there's a lot of things that happen within your organization. I don't beg to know them right now, but I know that there are a lot of things that happen in your organization that are just processes. And we've got people to do those processes. We can start to automate it. And it's not for the sake of losing the people. That's not it at all. It is so that we can put the minds of the people on the bigger rocks that the business needs to go attack and take some of this medial work out of that and speed it up at the same time. So there is a lot there. Now, if I were to summate this into a single takeaway, don't worry, there's more, but in a single takeaway, I would say that marketing is more than marketing. The days of marketing just being that first slide of the laundry list of things, like, yes, it is those things, and it is getting the new clients, and it is closing them faster, and it is keeping them longer. And I would beg to say that if we are not in sales's world, if we're not in the operation world, we are missing the boat for the organization of running faster, being more intelligent with the moves that we make and the resources we deploy, both in the short term and in the long term. And if we're not focused on this, quite frankly, we will be replaced by a team that is thinking that way. And so for so long, everything that I just went to you with was Iron Man shit. And it was impossible. It was overwhelming. It was expensive. It was all of this stuff. But the frank truth is, it's not that anymore. Prices have come down. It's way more efficient. It is not as overwhelming as you think it is to really get in touch with our CRMs, to really get in touch with our marketing automation, to start to put some of these lead scoring and gradings, model attribution processes in place, workflow notifications in place. I once heard Arnie Malham, he talks about this all the time. It's worth doing wrong. It is better to do it wrong and start moving than to try to perfect it and never do it at all. And so when we think about the systems and processes that we have access to, like, you probably have a lot of this stuff in play right now. Now, I wanted to take just a second and go through some of the platforms that I am used to working with that I see not only startup organizations, those are the organizations with no money, all the way to the Fortune 100 organizations are working with. Of course, we've got Salesforce and Pardot. Salesforce is always going to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It is probably the beefier. It is probably the more expensive one. But there are some light versions of Salesforce. In fact, Snapshot used to use Salesforce, right? And we were a startup company when we were using Salesforce. Pardot is usually Salesforce's right arm to their left arm. That is their marketing automation software. I will go ahead and just put out there, Pardot is built for B2B. It gets incredibly inefficient and incredibly expensive if you're trying to do B2C marketing on Pardot. I would start to go towards the marketing cloud for Salesforce. But that's one system, that's one unit. Then we've got HubSpot. HubSpot is probably the most cost-efficient and fastest tool to get up and going, simply because it scales the entire spectrum of a free CRM. It's got the marketing automation, and it's got all the sales. It also has service, as well as operations. And that is a tool that we are seeing a lot of explosive growth in. So that's a good one to check out. And then we've got, if you're a heavy Outlook or Microsoft user, there's always Dynamics and the pairing of Marketo. I will say Salesforce, Pardot, Marketo, and Dynamics are way a little bit more on that enterprise grade. HubSpot is probably that mid-tier to enterprise. So really quick and easy to get involved with that one. A lot of times I will walk into situations where they're like, hey, yeah, that was cool, that lead scoring thing. What the heck is that? Lead scoring is really us just coming up with a scoreboard for all the different touch points that somebody could have with our brand. So I'll leave this deck. I know we'll follow up and we'll send this out to everybody, but this is a scoring template that we use to start with. It is a great starter one. It's based off a 25-point system. And so essentially what this says is, once somebody gets to 25 points, we will now kick them over to sales because we believe their behavioral intent, their buyer intent is ready for a sales conversation. Anybody below 25 points, we're going to continue to market to them. And we've got different tiers of how we market to different people, but these are the touch points that we start to put into place. This starts to drip into the CRM. This starts to drip into workflows through marketing automation, but you can see it's everything from an email open rate to an email unsubscribe to I've clicked a button and now I raised my hand. That's immediate 25 points. And so this is one where we can start small, grow over time. It is a process that is extremely retroactive. So if we make a change today, so let's say we put it in place today, it will crawl back through all your data and put it in place. And so you will immediately see, oh my gosh, I have all these people that are 25 points. Doesn't mean that we want to flood the sales team right then and there. We want to start to qualify those on our side. Another thing that we find a lot of value in working with marketing teams stepping into this space with is how can we start to have more of an operational mindset with the marketing that we've got in place. So this again is a template that we use that starts to spell out not only the big rocks that marketing is or should be responsible for the next 12, 18, 24 months, but it also talks about the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. And when we go accomplish the big rock, or to accomplish the big rock, there's probably a myriad of little things that we have to go do to go accomplish that big rock. And so this helps us flow everything out from left to right, really putting the focus where the focus is. What is the true outcome that we want to go achieve? What are the little things here and there that we need to go do? What are those mini outcomes? What is the content that we need, and what channels are we deploying it across? Now, this is something that a lot of people just get overwhelmed with. Oh my gosh, my boss, my leadership team, my C-suite, they asked me to put together a marketing team and I'm paralyzed with it. This is something that you can take, you can start to work with it, and within 60 minutes to 2 hours, you have the formation of what could be a marketing plan that allows you to speak in more of that outcomes tone of voice, which is exactly what the leadership teams are looking for. So we'll leave that with you as well. Happy to geek out on all those things too. And then lastly, it is all around these automated workflows. So just laying out some low-hanging fruit to get the mind flowing a little bit, a little geek out session here. But it is, if we've got events, if we've got webinars, if we've got workshops that not only we're putting on, but we have to market to, there's some workflows that we can do. It doesn't have to come from Zoom. It doesn't have to come from Eventbrite. They can be branded based off our organization. We can lead them up to the event, get them super hyped up and jazzercised about it. And then after the event, we can do all these post follow-up things of, hey, thanks for coming. We have these next events, or, ooh, sorry, we missed you. Would you like to reschedule or speak with somebody on our sales team? So just some ideas there. Customer anniversaries, thinking of you email, new customer, what to expect, and simultaneously allowing the internal teams to get up to speed, get in all the software pieces, alerting, accounting, AR, whatever it is. But some good stuff here. With hiring taking a main stage in everybody's world, automating that process could be a beautiful thing, just putting it out there. So it's all around the intake process, what to expect, the personality survey, really automating whether it's top grading or your own flavor of that, but automating that process for your organization to make it more efficient. This is one that I think is super cool, and that is the employee onboarding experience. So new employee shows up on day one. It'd be super awesome if they had an email in their inbox to explain what their day was going to look like, maybe a little bit of the culture, maybe some nearby places to go hang out for happy hour or lunch or whatever makes sense for the organization. Over time, introducing them to new teams, new leadership individuals. And so really thinking through, what does that first day impression look like? What does that first week impression look like? The 30-day, the 60-day, or any touch points in between there. So a lot of really interesting things that marketing can start to help automate for the organization, not because us as marketers, we just want to take on more work and own the world. It is truly because the organizations that we are working with are now asking these types of questions. And it's because the enterprise tools that were once out of our reach are no longer out of our reach. What was once on the fringe is now becoming table stakes. And so it's our job to level up, to enterprise up to that type of a question and conversation, and own the space as we've always owned image-based and direct response marketing. So I'm trying to drill this point home. The takeaway here is this: marketing is more than just marketing. It is getting new clients, it is closing them faster, and it is keeping them longer. And if we can do that as marketers, the value that we will provide to our organization is profound. That's what I got. That's what I geek out on. Super stoked that you're here with me on this. I will pause there. Leah, turn it back over to you.
All right, we've got some questions. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Jose wants to know, what would be the best approach to begin marketing on a company that most of their customers are industrial customers? It's not a massive product, and it gets really hard to get leads the old school way.
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting you bring this up. So in industrial, so worked with anything from manufacturing to big machinery, and anything and everything. And it's everything from product sales to new product introductions into the market. And so there are some pairings of digital and traditional. So it sounds crazy, but traditional or direct mail is a huge opportunity with QR codes on there. So too are billboards, depending on the size and scope of your organization and regional reach. But so is marketing. And it's usually where we find a lot of grab on digital side is going after new individuals that we want to bring onto that manufacturing team, either from techs, mechanics, whatever that is. And so there is a play where it didn't used to be this, where digital marketing can have a stronghold on one aspect of the business, but so too will traditional marketing. And so in that space, there is a ton of procurement data to be had, both on the blue collar and white collar side of that house, that we can use to our advantage when we're trying to figure out what channels we should start to deploy content on, whether that is the new product introductions or new white papers, specs, or resells on equipment, if that is what we're talking about, or it is sheer the recruitment or competitive targeting across different competitors that are in our same market. So there's a lot of things that we can do there, Jose. Happy to geek out with you after this and kind of dive a little bit more into your organization specifically and see what kind of harebrained ideas we can come up with.
Yeah, Ben, I'd be happy to include your contact information in the follow-up, just in case there's any additional questions. I know there's a lot of information in here.
Yeah.
We've got a couple more questions. Everyone keeps sending them in. We've got the time. It says, what do you recommend as the best ways for sales, ops, and marketing to begin communicating on the level they need to be for this new world?
Yes, love that question. So a lot of times, I wouldn't say a lot of times, I've walked into situations where there's almost like there's a little bit of friction. It's this is my world, don't step into my world. And so as a marketer, the more we can start to de-escalate that process and come to sales and operations of, hey, sales, I know you're up against a pretty good quarterly quota. What can my team do to help you? I've got a couple of ideas. I'd love to talk to you about those ideas. Hey, operations, I know you're about to get flooded with all of this work. I think there's some things that we can do to help speed up that process and take the load off your team's plate. So there's so many times where just having the conversation instead of being, we should do this and why aren't you doing that? Because all that does is create a brick wall that nobody's going to get through. So the more we can de-escalate that, be the helpful party in that space, is where we start to feel momentum. And again, what I just shared with you is like 2 years of geek out sessions, right? It's like we don't have to do everything at once. It can start with, all right, sales team, I know we're sending you leads. I know you're not looking at those leads. I've got an idea. I think we can qualify some of these leads for you to not waste your time. What do you think about that? Let me talk you through this process. And it's just one thing, and we start to layer it on. If we do too much too soon, we will overwhelm, and we probably actually won't get anything done in the process. We just get excited and run around in circles. So that's probably one thing I would say there.
Marketers were really good at that, getting excited and running around in circles.
Amen.
Another question, and this is a good one. I hear this a lot. What's the best way to help automated emails avoid the spam folder?
Ooh, okay, yeah, that's a good one. So when we talk about, well, it's not, honestly, it's not automated emails. It is the email service that you're using. And so there's this whole concept of warming up IP addresses, whitelisting IP addresses. There's a lot of that. Now, going around to customers and be like, hey, can you whitelist my IP? That's a non-starter. We all know that. It sounds great in theory, and that's what an IT team is going to tell you to do, but it's just not going to work. So the best option is not to immediately cut over your email marketing from whatever service you're using today to the one you want to use tomorrow. It is to warm it up over a 30, 60-day period. So the IP address gets recognition with your DNS and your propagation servers on your domain name. So as it's coming through to the customer's end, it's a trusted email address. If they see it coming blankly from a new IP address, it probably will get flagged. Now, another thing to do, if it is on important communication from a customer, that's a great opportunity for a sales or an accounts person touch point of, hey, I just wanted to make sure you saw this email. Did you get this? This has some really cool information about the next product we're introducing or something that I thought you would be interested in. Let's hop on the phone and have a conversation. Hey, Sally, I didn't get that email. Now we can start to alert to there's a little issue going on here that we have to unpack. So there's a few things there. It's technical fast. Again, happy to geek out with you because I have been in the throes of spam, junk, rejection emails, all of that. But what I would say, sorry, not to belabor the point, it's not necessarily because of automation. It is because of that email is flagged because of an IP address, because of too many links, whatever it is. In some corporations, the higher you rise, are using extremely advanced firewalls like Barracuda, something to the effect where it is fishing for any kind of text that it might feel is a scam or inappropriate for that individual to read, and it will flag it and put it in their firewall. So sorry, that was probably more than you wanted, but again, happy to talk with you on that.
All right. Another question says, is there a role or roles you see marketing departments adding to their teams to accomplish all of this effectively?
Yes, for sure. And so kind of earlier in the conversation, working with some of the bigger teams out there that truly do have a department for every single task you can think of. They have a social media department, they have a PR, they have a media production department, they have ad ops, right? They've got data and analytics. I believe the thing that is going to accelerate the marketing team the fastest is on the data side. If we can start to understand our data, us as marketers, because we're some talented people on this call, us as marketers, if we have the data at our disposal, we can do some crazy awesome things. But it starts with intelligent data. The more we know our audience, the more we understand our buyer intent, the more we can get inside the mind of the person we're trying to talk to, the more dangerous we can be in a good way, but the more powerful we can be for the organization. And so understanding the data, and that is everything from a data strategist, a data analyst, and these individuals are out there. They geek out on that all day long and correlating different data points that will just blow your mind, but then creatively give you all these ideas of upstream. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think we could cross-sell to these people, or those people are going to be interested in that. Let's put a campaign together and target those individuals. And we can do that. And the more targeted we are, the more cost effective we are, and the faster we can run.
Amazing. Anyone have any last minute questions before we close this out? We do still have a few minutes if anyone has any questions. I'll give it the awkward 30-second pause.
Awkward. Well, guys, thank you all so much for letting me geek out on this. Hopefully there was some good stuff out of it. I truly do believe marketing's potential inside the organizations we work with is pretty immense. The change that we can affect, the results that we can help garner are awesome. And it's our job to go get it. And I do think it is changing. It's shifting before our feet. It's not to say that what we used to do is no longer what we do. It is yes and all this other stuff. So happy to geek out with anybody at any time. Super excited to be here.
All right. Thank you guys for attending. You'll receive a recap in the next 24 hours. It'll include all the resources mentioned and then a link to rewatch and share this webinar. Be sure to check out petracoach.com and click on our events tab to see all of our other upcoming workshops and webinars. And you can also view previous ones. And as always, if you have any further questions or we can provide some additional help for your team, reach out to us at info@petracoach.com. Ben, you never cease to impress me. Love nerding out with you today. Thanks so much for being with us. I will definitely, I will add Ben's email to the recap.
Cool, guys.
All right, thanks,
Thank you all.
Have a great day.
You too.